The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Looks like we're all here. Welcome to our Town Council work session for our budget year 2021-22. This evening, we have two things we're going to be looking at: the Board of Education's budget, and then we'll be looking at our capital request. So I believe we're going to talk to the Board of Education first. So Robert, are we going to have Superintendent LePage do a little overview and presentation? We got a nice spreadsheet here, and I'm sure he'll be talking about that, among others.
Yeah, we discouraged him from doing any overview.
But I still have a 48-slide presentation.
Jeez.
But he's willing
And you're
to do
down to
one.
one piece of paper?
One paper, that's all tonight.
Well,
If that's okay.
we're
I'm sure-
making headway here.
Tough crowd.
Certainly, we'd love to hear him, and he has wonderful information for us, but
I'm sure he could give a brief summary of what the total is and what the increase is and the
Sure.
percentage and where you stand, so.
okay.
Yeah, you can use that one.
So we will now turn over the presentation to Superintendent Stephen LePage. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, along with, of course, Sam Adlerstein, my numbers guy, and anything I can, Dave Lewandowski, my assistant superintendent. I don't have a presentation for you this evening. I spared you. I have another one I'm doing all the PTOs and faculty meetings, so I have 10 this week. I have one after this at, 7:15 or so. So whenever I get out, but I'm happy to share anything that you would like to see. I did give you the printout of the grants and the expended funds thus far through the CRF and the ESSER 1, which was the CARES Act, as well as what we expect to receive through the remainder of the ESSER 1 that will go to next year, and then the ESSER 2 grant that I've talked about in other presentations. Just looking at our overall budget increase of, let's get the appropriate slide, adopted budget of $40,028,972, which is an increase of $884,705, and a percentage increase of 2.26%. And as you know, that was calculating in the what we had estimated at the time for insurance being 4.5%, which we know can be $202,000 less than that. But that's up to the council. So that is our Board of Education adopted budget, approved budget. I'm happy to answer any other questions if I can, or if you'd like any more detail on any other.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. And if you could just, I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you gave us, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And just walk us through some of the things that you think are noteworthy. And also, can you explain to the council the use of funds? Are there restricted uses on what you can apply these funds toward, and can they be carried over year to year? And are there timeframes involved around ESSER 2 is beginning FY22 and American Rescue, which is the legislation just voted on today by Congress. Do we know anything else more about that?
I do not know more about ESSER 2 at this time. The CARES Act ends, ESSER 1 is good through September 30th of 2022, and that award for Plainville schools, Plainville in general, counting Wheeler Clinic, was $362,176, but we received $337,511. We spent, you can see there we've spent $164,498 of that. The CRF, Coronavirus Relief Funds, had to be expended by December 30th of 2020. So that has been all expended at this point. And that is the one that I had mentioned. We had originally been awarded $235,000. And then after myself and superintendents around the state petitioned that we were open in person, have been since the first day, and other districts never opened up, this money was really intended to keep schools open. So that money had to be returned by the districts that didn't open and reallocated to the districts that did a good job of staying open. So we were fortunate to get another $640,000 that really helped. Otherwise, I would have been looking for $640,000 to cover the expenses of all the different line items that you can see here. I know they're not spelled out in a ton of detail. You know, you're probably asking what containers are, and there's everything from the containers that we serve the food services. You know, the whole one side of the cafeteria is filled with those to-go containers, and everything from the Rubbermaid Tupperware containers for the classrooms, and all the way up to storage containers for furniture that we couldn't have in classrooms that we had to rent. So there's, you know, every one of these items is just a broad category with a lot of detail and thought and purchase orders that support all those different items. And Sam could probably give more detail if you need it on some of these items, because he's been directly involved in a lot of that, but a lot of them speak for themselves as well. The ESSER 2 is good through September 30th of 2023. That has to be spent down. That's the $1.605 million. And that evolved throughout the Board of Education's budget development process, which allowed us to take over $300,000 out of our operating budget because there were corona mitigation and remediation funds that were used for personnel and for technology and expenses. So we were able to pull those out. The Board of Ed reduced the budget from 2.84 originally down to 2.26 that was adopted. We don't know much about the American Rescue Plan Act other than we're going to be receiving a lot of money. You know, my biggest concern with this is that, you know, I don't know what the restrictions, limitations, time limits are on it yet. You know, and also between all of these grant funds, you have to be very careful about what you put into your programming and staffing, because, you know, otherwise you have a fiscal cliff when it comes to 2023-24, and we're planning a budget and trying to figure out how to keep all these great things going, and it could amount to a 12% budget increase, and we can't have that. So we're just trying to be very thoughtful in our planning for all the different services and supports for our kids to really do a good job of getting us back to where we need to be. We've done a great job in keeping our schools open and providing remote instruction for the students who could not, or parents did not want them in school. About 475 of those students throughout the year. You know, however, every child had a different learning situation, and it was obviously different from a normal year. So we're doing a lot of work now on assessing any learning gaps and planning accordingly with about 20 projects, 20 different plans in draft form. You know, starting summer school, you know, accelerated summer school programming, enrichment, and expanded programming all the way through, you know, the next 2 years. We have a pretty good rough idea that we worked with our entire administrative team, and they've been working very hard on that. So as far as the additional money, we have more planning to do because it's a good amount of money, and it's not meant to supplant, but to supplement. So, you know, therein lies the challenge with supplementing and adding meaningful services and supports and personnel without creating that fiscal cliff that I had mentioned. So.
Okay. I read your email regarding some changes that are upcoming. I believe came out yesterday, and there was an announcement that you're going to be the schools will be offering tuition-free preschool beginning in September.
That's right.
Is that part of this ESSER 2 money?
It is. It's the top line there underneath academic recovery, including preschool, summer, and other remediation. And it's an expensive endeavor. You know, we believe strongly in our preschool programs and the value that they serve, getting our students who live in Plainville, the 4-year-olds, in our schools. The level of the data that's been collected so far from those students who start with us and then go on to kindergarten, you know, from the kindergarten teachers, how well prepared they are, not just academically, but socially and behaviorally, and just adapting to school. And the studies have shown that, you know, longitudinal studies of success of students who go to a preschool program have incredible value over the long run, and also lead to a tremendous return on investment, anywhere from for every dollar spent, $7 of return to all the way up to $17 of return. So it's Vicki Trzynski did a really wonderful presentation, which I'll put on our website on Monday night for the Board of Ed on the value of preschool, and interviewed we actually have a little student who was interviewed, and also a parent who was very thrilled with the program. So
would that be all day?
All day, full week, preschool.
Full week, all
Yep.
day, as it is right now.
And right now, you know, and there's another side to this too. And right now, all the students who are charged tuition are not allowed to be counted toward our ECS number our number of students, I should say, in the district. If we're charging tuition, we can't include them in our student count. So as we go in with the phase-in for ECS, eventually those students will count for a full count as a student in our district, and we receive a certain amount of funds for every student that we have. I forget is it $4,700, or I can't remember the exact changes, but it's about $4,700 per student. So when you look at the amount of tuition that we've been collecting, once we're fully funded with ECS for the students who will count toward our ECS count, educational cost share, it'll be actually profitable, to include them rather than to charge tuition, because we're at our highest point. We've been charging $2,500 a year for full pay, $250 a month. We started free, and we had full 140 some odd students in the district doing pre-K. Right. And then it dropped off. We started charging more tuition, $100, $150, $200, up to $250 a month. And we saw, a number of factors led to a decline in enrollment this year, obviously COVID. But, we think between a partnership that Vicki Trzynski was able to forge, we have a great relationship with the YMCA, with their before and after care programs. So we have wraparound support for parents who need a longer day. That's what has appealed to some of them to go to outside private paid facilities. As I had to with my children. I wish my town had something like this, but they didn't. So parents are paying up to $1,000 a month for pre-K.
Right, I'm aware. So when this, just going forward, when the ESSER II money is expended, the preschool will be able to, you'll still be able to offer that at no cost to the parents once these monies are no longer available?
That is the goal.
That would be through your ECS money, is that correct?
Eventually, we'll get some ECS return. It's, as you know, with the phase-in, that's why when the governor announced in his budget, it's not the legislatively adopted budget yet. So we're hoping that the ECS phase-in to the full payment, which is over $12 million for Plainville, we're on the good side of the phase-in. We're not on the phase-out for ECS funds. So we're hoping that the governor's budget, that piece of it, and a lot of superintendents spoke out against that part to the legislature over the last couple of weeks. Against that freeze, the 2-year freeze. So yes, eventually it will take time until it's fully phased in to the point where it's more profitable than if we were to charge tuition. So I guess the bigger point is that we believe it's really good for kids. We believe that now with the grant funding, it really supports us doing this without taking a major hit to our budget. And we did get full approval from Kathy Dempsey and from the early childhood folks at the state that this is a really powerful use for these funds. They complimented us on this decision. They think it's a great thing for kids.
Okay, that was a question that I had kind of thought about.
Good question.
When Plainville schools first began preschool, there was no charge, and then that changed. And now.
Yeah. And we also think it will help families, at this time when, people are struggling. So, and they have young children, and the YMCA also has the sliding scale for fees. So if they're low income, so that'll help with the full day.
So this $3,661,000, you really have, I'm sure you've been thinking about some things, but until you have guidance about how and what you can spend this on, do you think it's going to change materially from ESSER II? Honestly, is it going to be about the same?
I don't know, and I don't know what the time limit will be. I'm hoping that we'll have a longer time frame in which to spend it. I think, when you look at someone like Hartford, it's getting a total of about $100 million between ESSER II and I'm estimating that number, but it's close to that. ESSER II and the American Rescue Funds, the percentage of that funds compared to their budget and what it's going to do to their long term. It's actually a challenge. It's a great thing to get funds, but you want to make sure that they're meaningfully spent. And we're doing that here. We'll make sure it's spent in a meaningful way. But no, do I have a full idea? We just got this news, so we just figured out a plan for all the ESSER II. And as you can see, well, I can point out on here, but the expended or planned to be spent is $1.747 million. Our estimated award is $1.605 million. So then there's a net. We need another $141,577. So we still have the ESSER I funds, but we've spent just about everything that we've been awarded so far, or I shouldn't say spent. It's in draft form. All these projects, we've estimated the cost of all of them. So, and I'll be sharing more at board meetings and in board subcommittees, and also with the town council as these plans come to life. But it'll be really good for the town and for our kids.
I agree. I think if we can have a little bit of leeway in spending some of this money, the town also we do not know what those parameters are going to be or restrictions in spending for that new monies that we're hoping to get. So it makes it a little bit, especially this time of the year while we're trying to put our budget together and make sure we do it thoughtfully without, not doing what we should. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, I do thank you for putting this together. It's
Well,
much appreciated,
I thank
Sam.
Sam Adlerstein for putting this together.
Sam,
Like I
Sam
said,
et al.
he's my numbers guy. And,
Yep. Okay.
and then Dave's picking up the slack for things that we're spending time on, budget and COVID and all that stuff. So I appreciate Dave Lewandowski too. I probably don't give him enough credit.
Great. Thank you.
Good team.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other comments about this information that we got
I
tonight?
do, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, right away.
Just a quick question. You have the amount that you removed from the fiscal year 22 budget,
Yes.
302,000. And I hope I asked this correctly, but is that part of the 40,028,000 you're presenting, or was that taken off and set aside because there was grant funding?
It's good. No, it's a fair question. It's a good question. It was taken off. Our original increase was about 1.1 and change $1 million. And because we were able to take it off for the grants, it
Okay,
brought it down to in the 880,000.
all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. That was, those were through the Board of Education budget workshops. We started at 2.84% that included that. And
Okay.
when we took that out, it was 2.26.
Okay.
Yep, good question.
Any other questions or comments regarding the presentation? So let's go into the budget. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the Board of Education budget for next year?
Madam Chair,
Go right ahead.
Mr. LePage, I looked through this, and I can't find it, and I know I saw the number earlier. How many new staff positions are in this budget?
0. The new staff that we were hiring are part of the COVID relief, so it's a school psychologist, a family school liaison, 2 tutors, and then 4.5, so half of a technology support, kind of an entry-level part-time position to help Kevin with Chromebook setup, distribution, repair, kind of lower-level technology jobs, but he really needs that because of the amount of technology we have.
So how many positions are being funded through the grants then?
Sam, do you have the offsets?
I didn't keep track. Was that about 5?
Oh, 4.5.
4.5?
I'm sorry. I thought you meant offsets in our actual budget with grant funding.
I forgot about that word from you guys
Oh, boy.
love the word offset. Yeah. It's no, I was just curious. I always worry about grants because I find when grant money runs out, these things become unfunded mandates essentially. I hate grants for operating costs. I like grants for one-time cost. So that's why I was just curious because I do worry about that fiscal cliff
Yep.
that you're talking about because obviously somewhere in 2024 you're going to have a staffing issue.
And I've thought that through, and we're going to be looking at and assessing our projects as we go forward, and also our staffing and how we do things. Things change over time, so we may make some shifts in how we staff in different areas. I have some thoughts, but not to unveil what's behind the
I'm
magic
not asking
screen.
you to
But no, I do
look
have
at the crystal, but I mean, it's concerning. I mean,
Yeah.
it's certainly concerning. And look,
I
I'm never going to
understand.
say no to taking essentially free money. I just don't like when the money then becomes our responsibility to continue to pay. So
Yeah, and I'm very aware of that, and we'll make sure that we're tracking, and keeping the resources in place that are providing the most value to our district and removing the ones that aren't. So we assess that pretty carefully.
So leaving the grant out, just looking at your operating budget, you have no new positions in this budget.
Correct.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask a specific question. Why is custodial part-time going up $35,000?
In the
Custodial and maintenance part-time, 30% increase.
No, go ahead, Sam.
The positions that Mr. LePage just mentioned are in the budget and then offset, but the ones you're asking in particular are staff that are added during this current year in relation to, for COVID necessity, and we're carrying them into next year. They're part-time custodial, and actually, in large part being funded by overtime. We won't have as much overtime because of those positions
Okay, yeah, that one just jumped out at me a little bit because it seemed like an add-on position there.
That page and this page, the custodial page, you'll see a net
Okay.
Right, and,
less overtime, more overtime.
right, because there's been quite a bit of overtime. We're trying to reduce the overtime and have those part-time supports.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Does anybody else have any questions for the superintendent? Go ahead. Oh, Rosemary, sorry. I'm having trouble with your double masking, but that's me. Go ahead.
You know, I really think of the COVID pandemic really as really being a three-pronged impact, you know, the health, economic, and then education really being the third one. So is it fair to say, you know, that the positions that you are going to be funding with the grant, they're important for the next couple of years in order to recover and recover time and learning?
Absolutely, and I think some of them may stay in, some of them may replace other positions as we consolidate going forward, kind of as I was saying to Mr. Naslow's question, you know, really assessing the value of our positions. So I see the school psychologists and family support liaisons. I see those positions being really important, maybe having a more of a permanent place in our ongoing budget, but then removing something else, you know, looking at that very carefully. You know, I'm not sure how things will evolve at the high school with the tutoring support positions. You know, right now I know we need them to help us recover and get kids what they need. As far as the technology support, you know, you know, that's a fairly small dollar amount. I think it's about $25,000 for the part-time tech person, but you know, we'll have to assess that as well. Right now, there's a heavy need for lots of technology, and you know, that may become a little more self-sustaining with less support.
Because there also will not be one, at least there will be a little more than 1 year positions, you feel they will be able to have even more impact
Yes.
on both learning and about most learning.
Absolutely. It's critical. With our focus on SEL, social emotional learning, and just supporting kids as they transition back, you know, we hear a lot of stories. We hear a lot of some sad things, you know, in our work about students' different situations. So there's a lot of work to be done to support kids, the kids who are remote, with parents doing the very best they can, you know, to support them, but having to be remote for whatever reason it might be, kids who are coming into school. There's a lot of social and emotional need, not just for kids, but for our staff as well, and for families and parents. So, yes, so it's a good question, and absolutely, I see that those positions will do a lot for the district, be very impactful. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions regarding the Board of Ed operating budget?
Madam Chair,
Go right ahead.
another question, please.
Yes.
When you develop the budget, do you know of retirements, or do you set up the budget anticipating retirements?
We know of most of them. We incentivize them to get us, you know,
The
send in their letter by
information ahead of
a certain date, but there's always the opportunity to send in after that time. But
But you have known retirements that you
We
want to
do.
be incorporated.
I think there's 8. Is that right, Sam? Yeah, we have 8 incorporated in there already with the savings from the higher wages to the entry level
Yep, Yep,
or
okay,
close. Yep,
thank you.
absolutely.
All set?
All set, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding the operating budget? Okay, next piece is your capital. Robert, we're going to review the capital while the board is here. Is that the plan?
Yes, I would encourage Steve to, or one of his
Okay.
staff to review the capital requests and
And Kevin's on board, I see.
yes.
Good.
And
All
you
right.
can see my recommendation with regards to the capital items as well.
Okay.
I
me
don't
get
have
to
that
our
slide
The-
up, Kim.
The list is best found under special funds,
Are we in
which is
I?
K5.
Okay,
And the bo-
okay, okay.
right, do we have,
All right.
Sam, can you send the latest? I can find it, but I have to pull it up from.
where's education? Here, are they K9. Okay. Excuse me, K9. Thank
Okay.
you.
Maybe, Steve, maybe you can talk from that schedule. I can share this with you, but it's.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks. I didn't have it pulled up as one of my tabs, so I'm just searching for it.
Okay, so Robert, just for my benefit, the board's, your recommendation for the board's total is 493,500, which includes all of the items listed above? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thanks. I just want to make sure we're doing these things. Okay. So,
All right, so district-wide, the A phones are the entry-level system intercoms that we've been replacing, much clearer, better for security, as for the entry security to our buildings. So they've done some of those, and they want to continue that work. And Sam, feel free to add more, or Kevin, or I don't know if Steve Bustle's, no, he's not online, but it's okay. The restroom cart and microfiber reaching tool. This is a new company that we're working with. Scott Martin and Sam have been working with a new company. Sam could probably speak to it better, but it's a company that does extensive training and compliance to make sure that we're doing the very best job of keeping everything clean, using designated cleaning implements for different jobs, so there's not a lot of crossover contamination. They do a lot of training, a lot of assuring that our buildings are the cleanest they can be with state-of-the-art green cleaners. But there's a special cart that comes with it with lots of the tools that they need. So that's the cost of $19,500 as part of this cleaning system. That will be much more hygienic and efficient in the long run. High school repointing, this has been in the budget for a long time, and it's been, it continues to be pushed out further, but there is some, water getting through and needing repointing of the exterior. So instead of trying to do it all in one $150,000 or more chunk, this is over 3 years, I believe, yes. So $50,000 would be to start the first section of the 1954 section of the building, repointing the exterior bricks. That's redoing the mortar between the bricks. And then the need for replacing two metal baseball bleachers that are out of compliance with safety code. So those need to be replaced. And repointing the smokestack, this is something that Steve Bustle was able to work on with getting an estimate from a mason who, instead of doing the entire smokestack, would just be the upper section. I don't know if that includes shortening the smokestack or just redoing the upper section, Sam, but do you remember? But anyway, the original repointing of the smokestack was going to be about $100,000, so this is a cheaper and effective way of making it safe. Right now, there's mortar and material falling out from between the bricks onto the roof, and it's hazardous and it's starting to lose integrity. And this was another thing that's been kind of pushed down the road a few years in a row. So, hoping to get that done. The Linden School repointing of the north side of the gym, that's also in pretty bad repair, but it's a smaller job, $20,000. And then technology, Kevin's here to, we did take the laminators out of there. They don't really, we were able to put those somewhere else within the operating budget. It's not really something that should have gone in the capital plan. It's about $5,000. But so the Chromebook replacement cycle and the staff Chromebooks that we had put off last year by having them use, 9 or 10-year-old laptops that were repurposed, but those are not able to continue to be updated. And Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these. The MSP lab, the 515 lab, which there's special computers that have to be used for the software that they need for that lab. Office desktops for the central office, Plainville High School, and Toflon. And then staff laptops. Kevin, do you want to talk about these? I'm trying to talk about your area, but you know it better than I do. I know about yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the Toflon laptops are replacing computers that will, at the end of the school year, be 7 years old. So they'll be starting their 7th year of operation if we continued with them. So we feel it's very strongly that we need to replace those. The other area is the Toflon flat panels. Those devices are replacing the projectors and smart boards that were put in when they renovated the building, and those will be 12 and a half years old when we replace those. So those are two primary things. Our Chromebook replacement plan is, continuing. It allows us to make sure that the devices are in good working order. We're moving to a 4-year plan starting next year to continue the first grade through 12th grade one-to-one with Chromebooks. Kindergarten, we're going to work with some existing things over the next 4 years and cover them, and as well as pre-K with some iPads. So that's an important part of our budget, to continue that replacement plan so we can get 4 years out of those devices. You'll get a device in 1st grade, 5th grade, and 9th grade. So that's when your replacements will happen. Office desktops is just sort of our normal replacement of every 5 years. The lab at the middle school is to replace a full lab of 25 computers, and we're just putting in 10 dedicated machines to help with some of the STEM engineering. These are going to be Windows machines. We're transitioning from Macintoshes to Windows because a lot of the engineering software now that they have and the things that they're doing, it would just be the easier fit for them. So they'll be sharing those devices. They don't need a full lab because the kids have their Chromebooks, and so it's another benefit of the Chromebook devices. Next you'll see is there's a network upgrade to the high school, and we've applied for E-rate funding for that. That is part of the plan that we have going forward. We have $20,000 in there, but with an estimated approximately $50,000 benefit from that because we get a 60% reimbursement rate. I think that covers everything that we have. Oh, staff Chromebooks. So we're looking at also adding staff Chromebooks for all our auxiliary staff, such as paraprofessionals, tutors, office professionals. With this remote type of work, the remote snow days, we need to have a device so people have something that goes home. We've been using 8-year-old laptops that we need to, they're more work to keep running than they are to beneficial. So we're looking at Chromebooks. They're a little more expensive than the student ones. I'm actually using one right now that we may look at, and so that's what we're planning on for them. So I think that's it from the technology side.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Does anybody have any questions regarding the capital request by the Board of Education for next year?
Madam Chair?
Mr.
I have a
Rocco.
question I'd like to ask.
Go ahead.
How did you guys arrive at a 4-year Chromebook replacement plan as opposed to, say, like a 5-year replacement plan?
Kevin, can you?
So I can get to that. We used to be on a 3 and 4 year. It's just these are $200 computers. These aren't $1,000 laptops or $800 laptops. So they're, getting 4 years out of them is going to be their limit. Google actually has an end of life from these devices, and it's approximately 5 years on some of the devices. So we really wouldn't get much more, but the 4 years, we used to do 3 for middle school because we were really focused middle school and high school. We had internal carts before. By the time a middle schooler is done with a Chromebook after 3 years, there's not much left to it. As much as we try, we keep them repaired. The kids who are, many of the kids do take good care of them, and we use their parts over again. So we've been very lucky. The insurance plan has basically covered all costs for repairs over the last since the inception of the program. We've never used any board monies for repairs of any of the Chromebooks other than purchasing them. So we feel like that's been very beneficial. And really, again, it's a $200 computer, and after 4 years, you've pretty much gotten the life out of it.
Thank you.
All set. Any other questions regarding the capital
Madam
that we
Chair.
looked at? Go ahead.
Kevin, staff laptops, you said you're looking at Chromebooks for them. Are we looking at a 4-year replacement cycle on those now?
We'll see. I probably maybe get 5 out of them because they're going to be a little bit more expensive. They're in the $350 price range, mainly because they're a larger screen. We probably can get close to 5. They take care of them as well.
Can you tell me how many devices that is?
We're looking between 80 and 100 right now. It's going up about 20 more. We may use some of the insurance fund to cover because we need a few more devices. And there, I think this is listed for 80 devices.
Can you also tell me what the lifespan is on the new Teflon displays?
We are hoping to get easily 10 years plus out of them. They do the same displays, similar we put in at Wheeler and at the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions regarding capital? I have a question regarding the CART and microfiber reaching tool. That's, you know, I've not heard of those before, but, so is this a purchase in response to an enhanced cleaning program because of what has been going on with COVID, or is this just a routine thing that you would buy anyway?
It's actually, it was being discussed before COVID struck, right? Sam works directly with our maintainers and custodians and supervising, so Sam could probably address that better. But.
Yeah, we're really focused on standard practice across the buildings. And if we don't have standard practice, we don't believe we can have best practice. And what we found is we don't have the same equipment building to building. Over the years, it's drifted. And this is going to allow us to start with standard equipment and from there build on standard practice. So every custodian is doing the same thing. And we're really layering on a number of things, inspections to be able to give input to any custodian about how to improve and get back to that standard practice when there's drift. It's something that I think the payback on this equipment is going to be well beyond just the equipment in terms of our ability to keep the schools clean, especially now, but not just now.
So I was just thinking if that could be paid for by your COVID grant money. It's just a thought, you know. I know that there's an enhanced awareness of keeping facilities clean, sanitized, and such, and this certainly sounds like it's going to help do that, but I'm trying to figure out a way that, is there another way that could be paid for rather than through your capital program? Just something to think about. Regarding the technology, I know that there's limitations about what can be used for the grant money. You can't, the word is supplant.
Right, yeah.
We can't use money for that. Okay. Well, that was one question I had. And some of this technology, it's been in there every year. I don't know if any of these numbers will change and before we finally approve this budget. Sometimes they do. In terms of pricing for the Chromebooks, that's happened in the past. Or the numbers that needed to be purchased, that's also happened in the past. All right. Any other questions regarding the capital for the Board of Ed or their operating while they're here? It's pretty quiet in here.
Well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming tonight and bringing this new information to us and talking to us about what you're looking forward to doing the next, not just next year, but that and beyond. Things are changing for all of us, and we appreciate any help you can get us to get to where we all need to be as best as we can.
Well, I and our entire team is fully committed to that, and you know, we care about our district and our kids and our town, and I have a great team. So I'm really optimistic about how we end up, you know, compared to a lot of districts, how we are now and where we're going to end up in next year and beyond. I'm excited about it. I may not seem it because I'm tired, but I'm really excited about what we're going to do for kids and for families, and I think it's going to benefit the entire community. So thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming this evening.
If you'll excuse me, I have to present
What's that?
I have to present my budget presentation to two of the Linden PTO now, so I'm going to walk.
Tell them we said hello.
I will.
Okay, so that takes care of the Board of Ed. We're going to go on and talk about some other things. You're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you have other things you'd be doing tonight. Thank you. All right. Capital budget, Robert, is that our next task before us?
Yes.
And it's tab M, is that correct? Where you want us to be?
I would go to K5 is probably the better
K5,
listing.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So if you don't mind walking us through, we have a new
Sure.
council member that hasn't had the pleasure of going through this, so
Yes.
if you don't mind.
And I'm going to concentrate, at least initially, on the staff that's here, so I'll skip the first two items that are under Finance Department and
Perfect.
Data Processing, 'cause we could catch them at the end. So I'll start with the Police Department.
Thank you.
A lot of these items we've seen before, but the first one you haven't seen is the body camera and storage. It was planned that we would, at least initially, that we would purchase this, after July 1st, although you heard yesterday that we may elevate that and try to get it this year to take advantage of, a grant that's out there at the state level. That's a first-come, first-served grant, but we will be bringing that to the council at a future meeting. But the $110,000 request was for the whole, at the time, the whole cost of the body cams. And at that time, there were 50% grants available. We wasn't sure if that was going to continue, so that's why I cut that in half and made it 55,000 and let the grant, pay for the other half at the time. So that's why, lowered it to 55. I think that's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of whether we do it this year or next year, depending upon some of the, based on some of the discussions that I've had with the lieutenants with regards to this. So whether the body cams are in next year's, whether we purchase them this year using, some unassigned fund balance and then replace that when we get the, if the budget's passed, or we'll work out the details. But that's what the body cameras are about. And I don't know if you have any questions with regards to the body cameras. I know Lieutenant's here, and you can.
Any questions at this point regarding that?
Okay.
Guess we're good.
And we'll bring that forward at a future council meeting, soon, I suspect, so. Patrol cruisers, we've replaced our patrol vehicles by, 2 1 year, 3 the next, 2 1 year, 3 the next, to run them out. I think our life cycle is somewhere around 5 years for patrol cars. Yes. So with that in mind, this is the year that we would purchase 2 patrol vehicles to replace. Some of them get handed down for other uses, the ones that have reached their useful life as a patrol vehicle. It may come to the municipal center for some staff vehicles, for a period of time, or, the police may use it for other needs, beyond patrol. That's on a regular day-to-day basis. And is there any questions about the patrol vehicles?
That's a total with everything that has to, all the equipment that they have to,
No, the equipment's a little further down.
oh, I see that. Okay. Sorry.
Patrol cruiser outfitting, so
Okay.
there's a lot of equipment that goes into these cruisers, so, as you might imagine. So you can take the total, divide it by 2 and see what it costs to have a full vehicle outfitted, which includes lights, sirens, other computer equipment that goes in them. The cage, yeah,
Okay.
those items. Next item is computer equipment aggregate. This is to replace their computers, so much per year to replace some of the older computers in the police department, similar to what the Board of Education does. So it's a replacement of computers over time, similar to what we do with the town as well. Data storage, I believe, maybe you can give a little explanation, Lieutenant, with regards to data storage, if you know.
Yeah, and I know Kevin was working on upgrading certain areas where we can have more room, because as time goes on, we just need more and more space.
Okay, let me ask Kevin then. Kevin, can you hear us?
Yep.
I know that the council is going to be reviewing data storage purchases at their meeting on Monday evening. The police department has put in a request for data storage, $20,000 for next year. Based upon the purchases that we're talking about buying this year, can you tell me what that $20,000 would be used for, or is that still necessary as far as,
I believe that is to cover the cost for the body cam storage. I think this is more, and to make sure that the body cams are backed up, the storage of that. I believe that's what that's for.
okay, all right.
That's a new implementation. We are looking, you'll be talking about more of this on Monday. This is last year's capital. With COVID and everything, we never fully implemented. We're working on that, and it's upgrading the police storage, and their whole servers and storage. And that's coming forward shortly.
Kevin, it's my understanding that that purchase would be coming under what we currently have budgeted in our capital item for the current fiscal year?
It is coming under budget. I think we're gonna be somewhere, 30,000 to be safe estimate right now, if not more.
So does it make sense for us to perhaps purchase the additional storage needed for the future body cams and eliminate this request for next year?
We could.
Okay,
I'd have to see what that was listed for. Again, that might have been, I don't recall what that amount money's for.
okay, all right. We'll get that information and we'll get it to the town council if that's okay. Hopefully you're able to follow.
Great,
that.
yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm not going to do it right now. Police ballistic vests for police and SWAT. They've requested $9,000. I feel that's important safety equipment that should be funded. If you have any questions about the details, certainly the lieutenant can answer it.
And we get 50% back on that on grants.
How many does this buy?
They're roughly $800 a piece, vests.
Okay.
There was a request for a Ford 150 cab and a four-wheel drive with an uplift, and I didn't feel that could be funded for next year. I think it's used to pull some of their equipment around and,
Cones, barricades, stuff like that.
cones, barricades, all those types of items. So they have a trailer right now. I think it's,
And right now, we're utilizing the old Ranger that used to be a K-9 vehicle.
yeah.
ACO vehicle.
So they're looking, a truck's an older truck. They're looking to replace that at some point in time. It's still functional, so I'm not recommending it. The dispatch communication equipment is pretty much our lease on our radio equipment, year-to-year amount. There's also a request for an administrative detective vehicle replacement. Then you see the patrol cruiser outfitting for the two. Then we have the cruiser watch guard system and contract. Lieutenant, I don't know if you want to just summarize that equipment?
Yeah, that's also, we've had that for a bit now, but that's also, as far as body camera, that's separate, but it's also a mandate, so we're ahead of the game there. But those are the in-dash cameras, and again, that takes quite a bit of storage also. And there is options moving forward too, where they have a managed care program. So in the future, we could look at some point doing that. But for right now, we have a pretty good handle on a lot of the cameras we have are newer, still have quite a bit of life left to them. So we've been replacing so many every year. And again, as of July next year, that's mandated that every patrol vehicle has to have a camera in the car as well as body camera.
Next is what's called the Hunt system for their CAD and RMS. I think that's to maintain equipment that you have right now.
Yeah, dispatch all the, upgrades and maintenance.
And last but not certainly least is replacement of some defibrillators in some of the patrol vehicles. know if there's any questions about any of the items that have either recommended or not recommended. If not, I'll move on to the fire department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you for coming this evening.
How's everybody doing? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Have a good night. Been a long day. Next is the fire department. Fire department is looking for a radio equipment upgrade. This is a major project, something that I discussed with the chief officers earlier during the budget making process. My recommendation, because it was unclear as to what system they were recommending and as far as the cost was concerned, it was my suggestion, and the chief officers accepted it, that they form a committee that's, to do some more research on this, do some analysis, talk with some vendors, and then come up with a more concrete recommendation as to what they need and what the total cost would be. So that would push it, the request back a little bit, but I, just be aware that this is something, the radio equipment is probably as old as the building itself?
No.
Not quite that old?
Not quite.
Okay.
I think it's probably at least 15 to 20 years old.
Okay.
Robert, wasn't there about 6 years ago a radio, was it the radio equipment that was upgraded about 6 years ago at the firehouse?
Yes, but not all of the radio equipment. This is, I think, the main,
Yeah, this is the main body of the radio. This is repeaters. The whole, last time it was more or less a replacement of certain things in the radio. This is a complete, by the end of next year, they will not support that radio anymore. There won't be any parts if we can't find them aftermarket. And we don't want to get ourselves into a bind where we can't fix that radio.
so, because it was unclear as to, cost, I felt it was best to, put a group together, firefighters and some staff from the town and
Yeah.
perhaps Kevin as well to assist in this, and we were hoping the chief would help us as well, but that's not going to be possible.
Okay, thank you.
So I didn't recommend that, but just letting you know that that's on the horizon.
It's on the study, so that would perhaps in next year's.
Yes.
Okay,
Class A apparatus replacement. This is a 1999 engine. And the plan would be that we would begin to, it's an $800,000 estimate for the vehicle. And we have generally funded these vehicles, with the exception of what was done last year. We generally have funded these vehicles, 1/5 over a 5-year period. Doesn't mean we wait till the 5th year to buy the vehicle. We may go a couple years in and then finance the remaining years. This is the traditional way that we have done this. Our goal is to have the major pieces of the fire department, which is, 4 major pieces plus the tower. Tower is separate, but planned for replacement, once every 20 years. So, one every 5 years. And so we've done that traditionally in the past by doing 1/5 of the vehicle purchase each year. Last year, the town, year before the voters authorized, buying 2 vehicles with the tower and an engine. And that gave the impression that, we didn't have to fund, the next round. But in looking at the age of the vehicle and trying to stay on, close to some type of 20-year schedule, my feeling was that we should put it in, have some discussion at the council level, and, determine if that's appropriate for going forward.
okay,
And
well,
certainly the chief can speak to that
yep,
current condition of that vehicle if you'd like.
Okay, I would just like to make a comment that these are, and I believe when fire equipment was put in this type of a payment schedule, they were much less expensive than they are now. This is an $800,000 piece of equipment or so, right? At the end of the day, that's about what it'll cost. And so probably at the time when we did that in the capital, when we were only funding maybe $25,000 a year or $30,000, it was made some sense. My thinking is that these are so very expensive that we should probably perhaps figure out another way to finance them, rather than putting that kind of money for 5 years and it stays in the capital for 5 years and then we get the piece of equipment. So I would be interested, Robert, if the council would also think about this, is looking at a plan where if we're going to do some borrowing, I know that we just did a road bond, so that's not coming up for a little bit, but I don't know if we have some other borrowing that may be coming up in the next year or two that we could perhaps think about including the truck in there rather than putting it in a capital. Then you're not getting it for 5 years anyway by the time it's already, been assigned those dollars. And it may make better sense to do it that way and free up this money for other things. Comments from the council. Does anybody have any opinion on that?
I would agree with your statement. I think we should look into other financing methods, especially given how low interest rates are today, and hopefully they'll stay low going forward, but, it's a matter of time before they start going up. So
Okay,
definitely worth a look.
thank you. Anybody else
I agree with that statement, too.
about looking at it and
Yes.
asking the town manager to look and see if we can fit that into some sort of a financing plan rather than in the capital?
Yes.
You're good with that?
Yeah, understanding that if we were to do a, bond it, that would require the approval of the taxpayers. That would be.
Right.
That would go to referendum.
But I don't know, in terms of our borrowing schedule, if there's any that we're going to be doing in the next couple of years. There's the middle school, that project that's out there, that's going to be a few years from now, but I don't know if there's anything else that we would be doing that this may be able to pair up with.
And we'll also look at, maybe even a bond anticipation note if it was going to be done over a relatively short period of time as well, so. But we'll take a look at it. I don't know, Rob, if you want to weigh in at all?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, typically when we bond, we like to spend the money within 3 years. So if this is an item that is 5 years out, then we wouldn't bond it right away. Well, we could do the bond anticipation note, like Robert's saying, kind of put some money into, development and building the item. And then when it's ready to actually be bonded, we can bond it. But again, like Robert said, that does have to go out to approval of the taxpayers.
But Rob, just, it's a 1999.
Right.
So we're already at the 21-year mark, 22-year mark. So we wouldn't necessarily, if we were going to bond it, we wouldn't necessarily wait 5 years to get to it.
That's true too, but it may take a couple years to build.
Right.
Is that correct, Chief?
It'll take probably less than, for the one pumper, probably just under a year.
A year, okay. So a bond anticipation or bond, depending on when, fits into the schedule, like we talked about. And we have some, the middle school, like you said, but that's not really out there yet. We do have the Wheeler School that has one, we probably have to do the final payment on that, final bonding on that. So that might be next in line.
Potentially,
Right, once we
may
get the
work out.
final payment in from the state and see what all the numbers are and audit,
Okay.
maybe something in that, but that's probably a year and a half out, maybe,
Which might,
might
so
fit this.
the timing isn't a problem necessarily, perhaps, if we could do it that way, because even with this, we'd have to wait until we accrued, I don't know how much money, before you could actually order the truck.
well, in the past, we have saved up perhaps 2 years and financed the last 3.
Yeah,
So we haven't necessarily waited till the end of the 5 years on occasion.
I see.
We have, and some I know we've borrowed as well.
Right, and typically if you commit to something, they want 40-50% down payment to build the truck.
That's substantial.
So it, it depends. If you build up a year or two, like Robert said, we put that down towards the down payment, finance the rest.
And they generally would finance an internal, a lot of times the fire, the fire truck companies will finance it themselves and give you, a deal.
Okay.
Chief, if you could just
Yeah, if you
touch
could,
briefly on the.
Tom, do you mind coming to the podium that you can, because I think the acoustics are better when he's at the mic. I can hear him better, and
maybe talk a little
probably
bit about
folks that are listening on.
the condition of that truck?
Yeah, the truck is a 1999 KME, which all our fleets are KMEs. It's getting to the point at 22 years now. At the year 2025, it'll be 26 years old. When it gets to be 20 to 25 years, the insurance companies aren't too happy with that because of liability. But, don't get me wrong, the truck is right now is in good shape.
Okay.
But it's slowly not going to meet the standards of the NFPA and safety for the firemen. So the truck will have to be replaced, hopefully within the next 5 years, 6 years. We have been slowly putting money into it. We just put $5,000 into it, almost $6,000 this past year to get the pumps up and running so it passes its yearly pump test, which is mandatory. We are having more calls. This year we had roughly 550 calls. We haven't done that in a long time. The call rate is usually just under 500, 490. So our call volume is getting higher, so the usage of the trucks are getting higher. All 3 trucks are in a rotation that they get rotated, so not one is used more than the other, with the exception of the new one. The new one is run all the time for the first year, so we can at least get our warranty out of that. And then they're just rotated, and it starts to rust underneath from the water leaking, absolutely cause rust. But the overall structure of the truck isn't bad at all. It's still very safe. It still passes its safety inspection, the DOT safety inspections every year. But we wanted to put it forth in the capital, so it wasn't a surprise to you that I come to you in 2025 and say, hey, I need a truck tomorrow. We wanted it to be put out there so what's coming down the road. Will it last 26 years to 2025? Absolutely. But we'd like you to look into, instead of waiting to the last minute
Sure.
to buy a truck. So we put it in there, and we'll see where it goes from there. It's not up to us, and we don't know. You guys make the determination how it's paid for. The price is the price. The last truck we just bought was $750. It would definitely go up. The price of steel goes up, goes down. So we're looking close to $8 for that one pumper. We won't be buying 2, unless you'd like to give us 2.
Tommy,
But
come on.
we're looking to replace that. The trade-in value is nil. So the trade-in value is not a factor.
Okay, well, I think that's good information, that it's not a crisis, but it's
No.
time to plan.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
so we'll Robert and Rob and, the council will try to figure out the best way to look at that and figure it out. Not necessarily keep it in capital, but maybe there's another way to
Yes.
target that to make sure we keep on track of things.
Yeah, we just don't want to get, for you guys, you got so much on your plate to forget about it, and then coming up at the last minute and saying, hey, we need a truck, and start the thinking all over again. So
Yep.
trying to stay a little bit ahead of where we're going.
Great.
Does anyone know what we paid in 1999 for that pumper? Off the top of your head?
I
know.
I think it was like 450,
Okay.
450-ish. And of course, with the new ones we just bought, the price went up and down every day on the price of steel.
Yeah.
And there's not much steel, it's aluminum and throughout, but it went up and down. So that has a major factor on it. And by the way, the trucks are fantastic.
Yeah.
Both of them. We thank you for that. They
Okay.
work good. So.
While you're there,
Yes.
let's see if there's any other questions about the fire department. There's not much else left here. No, really nothing.
Yeah, the items that I did not recommend, we have some funds in the current fiscal year in analyzing this. There's some funds left over from the fire truck, account, the 2 fire trucks, so we felt it was best to use, some of that money to cover some of these items in order to lower this.
Okay.
That's already approved. So we're not saying we're not taking care of items such as the personal protective equipment,
Right.
security upgrades to the building itself, extrication tools. Those items are getting purchased in the current fiscal year, which would negate us from having to fund them for next year. But you'll see them in
Yeah.
future, some of these items in future, years requests, but not next year. The other item is their bottle replacement, self-contained breathing apparatus. I believe that's what SCBA stands for.
Yes, the bottles will be, we have the bottles hydro tested every 5 years. We're at a point where their life expectancy is going to be up at about 2022. So we're going to definitely have to look to get all new bottles and air packs for that. We first got that probably 10, 12 years ago. We got a grant to do that, so that paid for that all at once. It's just hard to replace everything all at once again. So we totally understand that, but that's it will have to be upgraded. We will be meeting with the Scott Packs dealer hopefully within the next 6 months, and another. We'll take a look at where we're going, what we need to upgrade on the packs. If we can save the bottles and change them out, and we'll do that.
Okay.
The last item is the fire marshal and the interoperability radio.
Yeah, that should have been on. That doesn't come under my budget. That
Right,
comes under,
right. We listed it, so we won't ask you to say anything on that.
Okay. Thank you.
The fire marshal asked if he could get a vehicle and this radio, which allows him to speak to a couple of different fire departments. Right now, I think he has the ability to speak to Farmington and Southington. This radio would allow him to also speak to New Britain and Bristol. I did not recommend the replacement of the vehicle, but I felt it was important to get the radio, so that the amount that you see there, the $7,900 is for the radio.
Radio.
Yes,
Okay.
only.
Okay, so the vehicle's not happening.
Well, you could put it in if you chose to, but I'm not recommending it for next year.
Not if you say no. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I guess that's all for the fire department. Thanks,
right.
Tommy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and speaking with us.
Next is the roadways department. Dom, you want to stand up?
Here comes Dominic.
Do you feel need to wipe down your cousin's hand?
We got the same blood, so
Oh, okay.
a little saliva ain't gonna hurt.
Okay. First item, Dominic came up with an idea. I think it's a good idea. I just don't think the timing is good. He said, sometimes there are opportunities where vehicles become available, or something gets there's an emergency need, and sometimes being in the right place at the right time, timing is important. Somebody has a surplus vehicle or something they're trying to get rid of, it's a good deal. If you have money on hand, you can grab it. But if you have to, take weeks, to perhaps, run through the process, then, that opportunity goes away. So I think that's a little bit what you were thinking about, Tom. Do you want to supplement that
I
at
mean,
all?
I'm always looking for a deal, and it's happened before, where somebody's losing something, it's something that we need, we can get it at half the price. So what I was looking for is just a contingency fund that we have sitting there in case something comes up. Like Rob and I, a couple of years ago, bought a bucket. It was $18,000. I found a used one for $8,000. And, talking with Rob, we had the money. So we were able to purchase the bucket from a contractor that was going out of business. So, we're always looking for a deal. I mean, I'm always squeezing nickels, trying to make 25 cents out of them for our department. So it was just something that came to mind. I talked with Matt in regards to it, just to have a little something sitting there in case we did have an issue. Snow plows now are $8,500 to $10,000.
the end of the season comes, somebody's losing one, if we can get it for $4,000, at least we'd have the money sitting there, ready to go.
Yep.
Not to just have it there, but, just in case something comes along, so, to try to save some money. So, and we talked about it back and forth.
So, Robert, you're not recommending that, but
I think it's a good idea, but
I think we can take care of those kinds of things without putting it in a capital. For example, a year ago or 2 years ago, there was that little backhoe thing that you wanted, and it wasn't in the budget, and somehow there was some savings within your department, and the council said, yeah. But if something happened, we could appropriate.
yeah, I think we still have some flexibility, but I think the concept is a good one.
Yep. Okay.
Next item is the VACCON catch basin cleaner. This is a $400,000 vehicle. It doesn't put out fires, so unfortunately. But so the recommendation is we have one. It's 1995. They've done a lot of repairs on it recently. It continues to wear itself out, but so they're kind of limping along. So it's time to, I believe it's time to replace it. And so my recommendation is to put away half this year and half next year. And Dom certainly could give you a little bit more detail about that piece of equipment.
And as you know, we have 2,000 catch basins in town. Before we switched to using salt, we had salt sand. We'd clean every catch basin every year, 2,000. So now we cut back a little bit, and we're nursing it. We know it's getting older. I put a pump in it, which is $18,000. We rebuilt the back end for like $25,000. We spend approximately $15,000 a year on maintenance on this piece of equipment to keep it running. We use it for our road bond program, for cleaning out the catch basins that we need to rebuild. We use it for jetting of the lines. The last time I went to rebuild the pump was approximately 3 years ago. I couldn't get parts for it. And this is what's happening in the whole industry, is that they'll do parts for 20 years, but then after that, they won't replace parts. So I end up calling some contractors, some friends of mine, other guys in the business. We were able to rebuild the valves in-house, which we're fortunate that my mechanic used to work on these before he came to the town of Plainville. So he knows this machine inside and out. So we're able to rebuild and keep this machine humping along. Right now, my pressures, normally it runs 3,500 PSI to jet the lines. Well, I'm down to 1,800 now. It's starting to lose it, and I can't get any parts for it anymore. And talking with Robert, it's 21 years old, 27. I don't know, I lose track after a while, but it's going to be time. I know we can get this year out of it and next year, but we are just limping it along, using it when we have to. And then when the sewer plant machine is down, we loan it to the sewer plant too, if theirs is broken down. So, like I say, it is time.
Okay.
There's no question, the next item is the central fueling system. We have underground tanks at the garage. They're reaching their useful life. We're proposing to purchase an above-ground system that would be completely self-contained with new pumps and whatnot. Even the pumps that are out there now are very difficult to get parts for. This is a $300,000 replacement. We're proposing that $50,000 of it be put in for next year and ramp that up over the next couple of years. If you look at your 5-year plan, you can see where our plan is to keep limping along with it, but it's a large purchase. To be $50,000 this year, $75,000 the following year, $75,000 the following year after that, and $100,000 the year after that. So we figure we start to dip our foot into the water, but given all the other things that are on our plate, we feel that some type of commitment should start, and so that it will continue. Sometimes if you don't do the initial funding, that's really the hardest one, is to get it on the radar screen, so to speak.
Okay.
Next item is facilities improvement. you know, and we spoke a little bit about this the other day, the garage area, the 3 buildings that are there, and I guess there's even other buildings, you know, other smaller buildings, you know, that, you know, have been there for a long time. You know, some 20 years, some 30 years, some longer perhaps.
Some 70 years.
You know, the thought here was that, you know, we need to start reviewing what our future needs are for this building, for this facility, and that, you know, the estimated cost of this is hard to, you know, it's hard to estimate at this point in time, although, you know, we did, you know, at least put I guess just a, you know, a rough estimate that would be, let me just find it here. Total cost of, what do we have in there, Matt? Roadway facilities improvement, 50,000 this year, 125 next year, and 500,000 a year after that. So our, you know, rough estimate, and I'm not sure what it's based on necessarily, but, you know, it's probably a, you know, perhaps a $700,000 or $800,000, and perhaps even more, depending upon, you know, what's determined. But what we're proposing for next year is to use the $25,000 recommendation to hire a consultant to come in and do a study and to, you know, work with Public Works and town staff and, you know, and then bring some of the ideas to the council and see where we go from there. But we believe it's important to start. We take care of our buildings. We've taken care of, you know, all of our school buildings. You know, the middle school is on the radar screen. You know, the library, the police station, the municipal center. But, you know, the Public Works Department and Buildings and Grounds, you know, need, you know, from our perspective to be, you know, looked at and determined, you know, and get some recommendations as to where to go and why.
Okay. Any questions for Dominic regarding his department here? I think he filled us in pretty well with
Oh, okay, thank you.
what's going on, so.
Thanks.
All set? Okay, thanks, Dominic. All right.
I know that I believe Dave is online, but we're going to skip you, Dave, because you're sitting at home and John's sitting here in the room, so we're going to go to John Bossy first.
Okay, I can wait, thank you.
Glad to hear that. So we'll go to the Technical Services Department. And we talked a little bit about these at our previous meeting as well. The town facilities paving. The request is for $200,000, but after some further analysis, we found out that the actual cost is probably somewhere around $240,000. And that's to repave the firehouse parking lot, both front and rear, but not the side parking lot, and as well as the police department parking lot, which are, you know, pretty severely compromised. There's, you know, major cracks, you know, heavy vehicles, especially as it comes down to the road, the exit, you know, where the fire vehicles come, but the entrance way on the west side as well as the rear parking lot are in pretty bad shape. You do have a picture of, you know, that Matt put in front of you earlier this evening. But the pavement is pretty much reached its useful life. John, I don't know if you want to supplement any comments with regards to that?
Well, the pavement for the firehouse was put in 1987 or thereabouts. So it's about time that pavement has seen better days. The police department, we spent, not last summer, but the summer before, we spent a considerable amount of money to crack seal the parking lot to hold it together. It's in the shape that really should be redone. The game plan would be to either strip off the asphalt or recycle the material into the existing material and overlay it and put new asphalt over the top of that.
And our proposal would be that we would use town aid road monies to fund this.
Yep.
And a good portion of the, just maybe to go back a little bit, you know, we're talking about $2 million of capital improvements, but only 300 and some odd thousand, 313,000 coming from the general fund to support it with, other grant funds and Town Aid Road and LoSAP, and fund balance, covering the rest. So, but we would particularly target Town Aid Road funds for doing these two parking lots as far as paving is concerned. We believe those are eligible items under that work. The next one is the sidewalk repair and construction. We have some saved up in the current year. This would probably put us in the, if the 150 is approved, that would probably put us in the area of $250,000, given what we have in the current fiscal year for when the analysis is done by our consultant and they prioritize the sidewalks. I will say that some of the initial work that they've done is somewhat promising. I mean, we have some stretches of sidewalk that need to be repaired and replaced, but we do, according to their analysis, our sidewalks in some areas are in fairly decent shape. So, John, I don't know if you want to expound on that a little bit, or?
In regards to sidewalk construction, scale is probably important. The larger the projects, the least expensive per square foot the work becomes. It allows the project to be more encompassing rather than skipping around. When you skip around, you incur costs just by virtue of mobilization and stuff like that. But it would be helpful if we could put together a large-scale sidewalk project. Back when I first started here, we used to put together $100,000 sidewalk projects and do a whole neighborhood in one swoop. That's what the aim of this request is to be able to put together a large-scale project and complete a whole area that needs to be done.
Okay.
Next item that I'm recommending is the MS4 monitoring program. This is money that we put away each year. This is a state mandate that we have to do certain work. And I'll have John talk a little bit about that since he heads up that project by and large.
MS4 is basically a EPA deep program that requires communities to monitor and improve stormwater. Basically, urban areas generate certain contaminants in stormwater. In particular, in Plainville, one of our toughest contaminants is E. coli. That's the stuff that after it rains, you can't swim at a beach or at a lake. Most of that is being generated from urban runoff. This particular program is two-phased. You have a monitoring phase, which we're currently in, and then you have a corrective phase, which we haven't reached yet because we haven't gathered enough information to reach that point. Ultimately, communities are going to be pushed to ensure that their stormwater meets certain thresholds.
Okay.
The projects that have been requested and not recommended, I'd like to go through them quickly. With regards to the Tomlinson Avenue Bridge, we have appropriated or approved dollars in the past. It looks like that project may go forward this summer. I mean, it's been delayed for probably 8 to 10 years, going through,
We have only one hurdle to overcome, and that's Army Corps approval. Our plans have been at Army Corps since last July. We're in the queue. That's about as much as we get. We finished the design. We've acquired all the other permits, all the other regulatory permits that we need to do the work. We're just waiting on Army Corps.
About probably 6 years ago, we had a design all approved, ready to go, and Deep Fisheries came by and said that, they were concerned about the fish being able to come up the Quinnipiac River, and that the way it was designed, they wouldn't be able to get through that culvert design, which I don't think they could have got through the culvert design at the time either, but they felt it was important to change the design of that, so it went back to design. I think it was almost.
Well, the scope of the work actually changed because the scope was to basically rehab the existing pipes. We were going to wind another piece of steel into the pipe and basically reline the pipe. And the new design requires a concrete box culvert put in. Also that there was a stream width wide enough for fish passage from south to north and north to south.
So that increased our cost, the federal government through the state is paying for 75%, 80%?
It's an 80-20 split between the federal government and the town.
So it did increase our cost, but, our cost only, was increased by 20% of what the increase was, and the feds were picking up the difference, I'm not sure that our share is 250. It remains to be seen, but I feel that we have sufficient funds, and again, in our town aid road account to be able to cover the difference. So we will be able to do the Tomlinson Road Bridge if it moves forward this summer, and I believe we have funds available to do that. And it doesn't need to be put into the capital improvement. With regards to the Metacomet detention pond outlet improvement, if you're familiar with the Metacomet Trail, Metacomet pond, detention pond, it's up at the top of the hill. It's like a typical pond. It gets stagnant in the summertime, gets some green slime on it, causes some temporary problems. And it was, we looked at it, it probably could be improved by making some improvements to the outlet, but, I don't think it's, we have one person whose backyard backs up to it that's concerned about it, but I just don't feel it rises at this point in time to be funded at this, right now. Minor bridge repairs. There's some minor bridge repairs that have to be done to the Northwest Drive Bridge. I had some discussions with Public Works, and we feel we can get it done this year with some existing funds and not have to, have that done through next year's capital improvement program. So we are going to make those, some of those repairs that are recommended by the state of Connecticut, who does bridge inspections. I think they do it once every other year now.
Correct. Every other year, they provide us an inspection report on the condition of, I think we've got what they consider bridges, I think 7 or 8. Some of these, most people wouldn't consider bridges. They're basically pipes under the road, but it's of a length that falls under the criteria that DOT determines as a bridge.
But this is a bridge.
Yeah,
Everybody would agree that this is a bridge.
This is a real bridge. This is a bridge that's probably worth upwards to $3-4 million to build and replace. So.
It's in fair condition. I mean, it's in fair condition. They're recommending that some of these minor bridge repairs be made so it doesn't fall back into a worse condition. So, we know what they are, and in talking to Dominic, he feels that he can get a good portion of that work done. So, a lot of it has to do with drainage, some spalling areas, and where the water is dripped down. So, anyhow, next is roadway sign replacement. We do have some roadway sign previous monies that I think are enough to get us through next year. So I didn't feel a need to increase it, to put another $15,000 in there for next year. As far as crack sealing and guide rail replacement, again, any of that work that's needed for next year, beginning July 1st, I also feel we have some town aid road monies that could be, has been saved up over time, that could be used. So that's why I didn't include it in the capital. Town aid road is off budget. So, downtown, we have our stamped concrete that was probably installed 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
12 years or so.
It's faded a little bit. It certainly could use a touch-up or a redo, but just didn't make its way to the top of the list as far as a recommendation for next year. And environmental compliance, we have saved some money up in environmental compliance. That has to do with testing of some outfalls and whatnot, or is, no, that,
Well, it's all encompassing, really. We've used it for, in the past, the landfill.
the landfill testing as well, yeah, so.
It's kind of an all-encompassing type of item for odds and ends that are required by various environmental permits.
So we have some monies, in the fund right now, and I didn't feel a need to put some more in for next year. But it's not something that's going away.
Okay.
So that's all for the technical services department. I don't know if you have any further questions or comments?
Any more questions for John about his department? Okay, thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Now we'll go to Buildings and Grounds. Now we'll go to Dave. You there, Dave?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You have a camera? You don't have to. You know. We don't want to think it's Carol that's imitating your voice. Anyhow. Okay, I'll get started. First is a four-wheel drive utility body with plow. Dave, can you talk a little bit about that truck?
Yeah,
That's the 44,000 one?
that truck is, the truck it's replacing is, I believe, a 1995 truck. It's used very little at this point because of the extensive rot on the body, and it's starting to, the frame is also starting to rot as well. We only go out, sometimes the part-timers use it, that sort of thing. Has no trade-in value whatsoever. But what I would actually do, as I would keep that truck as long as it's safe for the road, and at this point, it's still safe. But I would replace it with this utility body plow and actually have our second HVAC person utilize that truck full time.
Next item is a four-wheel drive mower. I'm not sure why it says aggregate, but $68,000. I know that this would be replacing this is a large mower, that right now we have a 15-foot cut mower, and this would, you were going to look for a,
I'm actually requesting a smaller size mower, but however, it's a more efficient mower. So it can more or less cover the same amount of ground in the same amount of time. But the 1988 machine that I'm trying to replace, the Jacobs system at HR-15, is, it's obsolete. All the parts for the transmission and drivetrain are obsolete. Anything that breaks down at this point, we have to actually have the parts made to keep this machine running. So it's on its last leg. It's been well worth its money, I think, over the years, but I think it's served its useful life at this point. And replacing it with the machine I'm requesting, we'd still be able to cover the same ground efficiently as we do now.
Dave, was there some opportunity to also utilize that mower for other purposes off-season? Was that something we discussed or not?
The mower that I'm requesting, no, it's a dedicated mower.
Okay, all right, thank you.
This one.
Okay. I don't know if there's any questions about either of those two items to start? Okay, next item I'm recommending is the Municipal Center masonry repairs. I don't know if you've noticed coming in the rear entranceway, some of the condition of the bricks. We've given you some pictures. Sometimes you walk past it, you don't notice it. But it's really, getting to be an issue with regards to needing some fixing and repointing. We don't know what the total cost of this would be, but we think $18,000 would be a good start and hopefully cover, a good portion of what needs to get done. Dave, do you want to expound on that at all?
Sure. The front has some deterioration, but not as much as the rear. The rear is really, the area where it's coming apart the most. The brick is falling and cracking. The joints have separated. The caulking that we had done, probably about 15 years ago, is coming apart as well. So, and the brickwork is mostly facade on top of the concrete superstructure, but if the brick fails, then obviously the water and salt and things can get to the concrete superstructure, and then you have, structural problems. So we want to try to, and the aesthetics obviously are an issue as well. So yeah, we'd like to start fixing some of this up and helping, it'll help to preserve the building for the future as well.
Next item is the municipal fire alarm system. This has been on our, requested, and it's been kind of pushed back each year. Yeah, we can do one more year. Yeah, we can do one more year. And we could probably do one more year, but at some point in time, it's gonna fail. It's very difficult for us to get parts, and it's gonna be an emergency. So, this is, it's well past its useful life. Dave, I don't know if you want to add anything to this?
No, that pretty much says it all. It's actually a high voltage system where now all the modern systems are low voltage. We would also have to update.
We lost you there, Dave. Well, we have to update something else. So, devices, okay. All right. And next item recommended is the fire department window replacement. This is a long-term project. The windows are of the original building. I believe that these windows that we're talking about replacing are in the officers' offices. And, they're in poor shape. In the wintertime, it's very difficult to, even on a cold day, to be in there. The wind is, blowing through the areas around the windows. So this is a project that would probably replace all the windows, in the firehouse at some point in time, and this is just a start. I think if you go down to, on the 5-year plan, fire department window replacement, we were talking about $25,000 this year, $50,000 next year, and $65,000 the year after. So we're estimating right now that the project is, somewhere around $140,000, $150,000.
Robert, I know some of those windows in the dispatch center, you got daylight coming through the frames, they're so rotted. So
Yep.
that might be where the biggest need is, but I'm not sure.
Yep. Dave, are you still with us? It is the dispatch windows that they're going to address first?
Those are the first two.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. As far as the windows are concerned, Dave, at the firehouse, which ones are we going to do first? Are they the dispatch or the officers' windows?
Well, I would have to really see price-wise which would be the most effective, but yes, dispatch needs some attention for sure. And I would say, if nothing else, we're going to have to do some temporary repair, I think, if depending on what we can accomplish with the money that's approved.
Yeah, as far as the firehouse is concerned, dispatch, fire dispatch is in there, overnight, and that's usually the coldest part of the day, and so that's probably the higher need, if all things being equal. So thank you for that, Jesse. But that's a project that. Yep. So that's a project that we have to start working on. There's been a need there for a while. It's been kind of pushed back as far as requests is concerned, but this is something that, we need to start working on. We're not proposing to do it all in 1 year, but to spread it out. As far as the items, I'm not recommending the ADA transition upgrades aggregate. We have some dollars left over. The recreation roof replacement, looking to push that back at least another year, due to priorities. And the middle school diamond upgrade, that I'm not sure that it's worth fixing that field, but it's not a high priority for the board. It's not a high priority for the board. They have some other options that they've used over the last several years, so. I think that's all from Buildings and Grounds. So does anybody have any questions for Dave or myself or Matt with regards to the Buildings and Grounds request?
All set.
If not, Dave, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Have a good night. Going back to the first page, the Finance Department Assessor Revaluation. We have reval, that's, you authorized a reval contract recently. We've saved up a certain amount of dollars. We've estimated that we're going to need some additional dollars just to get through the reval. the current reval, so, we're requesting $60,000, which would be for the current reval, but it wouldn't, since we have monies in place right now, we can cover ourselves till we get to next year. Rob, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you hit it perfectly well.
Okay. If there's any questions about the reval. What's the total cost of reval? What's our total estimate?
I believe our estimate was just under 200,000 total. And we currently have about just around 140,000. So with this 56,000, it'll get us just to about where we need for the total contract.
Okay.
Next is the data processing department, $30,000. This replaces computers on a rotating basis. I believe that, I don't know, did we do tax and assessing this year? Or was that last year?
Tax assessing and central, and, town manager's office.
Okay, and do you know what's scheduled for next year?
Clerk's office, finance department, and I think some of the, registers.
Okay, and we're somewhere on a 5-year schedule for the computer replacements?
Yep.
Okay, and we also do other departments as well. We've done senior center, we've done,
Senior center
Recreation.
last year.
yep,
We did some, this year, also we did, water pollution control this year.
yep.
We bought all their new computers for them.
So we work with,
Building their network, so.
yep, so we work with the IT department and, and prioritize, the older ones and we replace them before they,
And we're taking the machines that just came out of the, those offices, and they're going into the public library to replace those big towers with the smaller units. So they're still being used there. And that'll probably continue to be our usage of those machines after 5 years. We'll put them into those, public, use places.
where they're not as complicated as far as, they're more simple as far as what they, I guess, access and use as a computer.
Yep.
Okay.
If a kiosk goes down or a public computer, it's not, business doesn't stop, so we can replace it and fix it, so.
Any questions with regards to those two items? If you flip the page, we have 2 items. One is the dial-a-ride vehicle match. We did buy a dial-a-ride, and we historically have saved up $5,000 a year, so when we go to our next vehicle, we have the match ready to go. That puts us in a superior position to have the money in place when we apply for the grant. That's generally a very strong factor in allowing us to be eligible to get. We've been very successful in replacing our senior vans in a very timely fashion. And the last is the planning department. There was some, mandates about doing affordable housing, plans, analysis for communities. We're gonna look to see what we can do in-house, and so, we weren't really prepared to recommend that for next year as far as funding through the capital improvement plan. The only other items, unless there's no questions with regards to at least those two, the only other items I have is really to briefly talk about the water pollution control. I know you approved the budget last evening, which included a line item for water pollution control for capital, but I'd like to at least review that quickly with you. Everybody have that copy of that sheet that was handed out? We're recommending 3 projects for this year that total $247,010. One is replacement of pumps and motors, and this is in our, I believe that's mostly in, did he say he has 2 pump stations that he needs to finalize? Is that where most of that's going? Yeah, we're trying to upgrade our pump stations, and we have 2 relatively small pump stations that would be upgraded with pumps and motors that are really reaching the end of their useful life. What sewer pump stations you don't want to get to the point where they don't work anymore and then you have to go out and buy the pump. You try to do it in advance if possible. So we have $150,000 for equipment replacement failure fund. That's if a pipe breaks in the street or problem with down at the plant with any emergency equipment replacement. $150,000 seems to do the trick each year in terms of taking care of those needs. Manhole rehabilitation is, we have a lot of infiltration into our system. For example, if we, in a dry summer, our flow at the treatment plant might be somewhere in the middle, in the 1.8, 1.9, $2 million range a day, gallons a day. But in the springtime, we could more than double that. And that isn't because people are using their toilets more often. It's just because our system is susceptible to high groundwater. And so we have found over the years that that's a good portion or some of that comes from, manholes that leak over time, cars running them over, they get compromised with movement of, and that we try to identify those and, do some repair of those so that we stop, try to reduce the amount of water that gets into the system. At some point in time, we probably need to do, a more thorough analysis of some of our pump station, or at least, of our leaks, do what they call, I guess, infiltration and inflow, an I&I study. There was one done probably 20 years ago. There wasn't much follow-up on it. It can be an expensive. The study's not that expensive, but it's replacing some of the sewer pipes in the road that could that could be relatively expensive. So, but we're not at that stage yet. We're at the beginning stages of putting together and having some conversations with the sewer department and Joe Aloso with regards to where we might focus on first. One thing I do want to point out is the shuttle metal pump station. That's one of our major pump stations. Takes care of a pretty good sized neighborhood. You'll see that we've tagged fiscal year 25, and you'll see a $500,000 appropriation, recommendation there. We're in the early stages of that. We're not sure if $500,000, is the right number, and we're going to begin to put a in-house planning group together and perhaps come back to the council and ask for some funds to hire a consultant to do some work, but we're not at that stage yet to recommend anything. This may be something that comes forward, and we may be able to take it out of our equipment replacement failure fund. So it may not require an additional appropriation, but we will make you aware of that potential need that we know needs to be addressed. That's really the last pump station that would need to be upgraded, and it's an old style pump station, and it has some issues, and a lot of the infiltration that I spoke about just a minute ago runs through that shuttle metal pump station. So if the pump station goes down, we do have pumps that could we could drag out there and run. We actually did that for a period of time when the power goes out. So we do have alternatives, but that's certainly not a long-term solution. But right now it's working. The pumps are not in the wet well. They're actually in a dry well, and that's kind of an old style of doing things, and they're not very accessible. I believe that the pumps, if you have to go into that pump station to do work on it, you're going down a hole that's about 30 feet deep, and it's fairly narrow. So it's not a safe situation. They follow the proper protocols, but it's something that needs to be looked at, and we're beginning to plan on that. And I just want to give you a heads up that this is something that's will become more important as we go forward. But we'll bring that to your attention. Between now and the next fiscal year, we'll have some discussion about that with the council at a council meeting, and perhaps a work session. So that is, by and large, the request. Again, we're looking to use some unassigned fund balance, some LoSUP funding, some town aid roads, some project funding that was left over. I will say, because we split the, you know, the pages, you know, so if you want to see how much undesignated fund balance we're recommending, you'd have to, it's the 681,9 on the town side and 187,250 on the board side. I'm not sure why that split was made in that direction. It's really kind of one big capital project. You could put them all on one page and get the same result, so. I don't know why you did it that way, Rob, but.
Well, because they're two, the Board of Ed and the town capital funds are two separate funds.
Right, but I don't know why you chose to put so much of this underneath fund balance in one and not, you know. How'd you
Yeah, I
make that
mean,
decision?
it's simply because of the amount that was, the gross amount that was budgeted for the Board of Ed. We kind of back into what that amount is and back off what needs to come out of unassigned fund balance.
Yeah, I don't remember being consulted on that, but that's okay.
I have to make the funds work, so.
All I'm saying is don't read too much into, you know, the red numbers as they're
Right.
assigned to each department. It's really kind of an aggregate.
Correct.
That's all.
Okay. That takes care of all of our capital. Does anybody have any general questions or specific questions about what we reviewed tonight regarding the town or the Board of Ed capital? Okay.
Just, you know, the direction I heard this evening, I believe, from council members is the idea of at least reducing the amount that we recommended for the fire department truck replacement, and then we work on financing of that, and that doesn't need to be done before we're done with our budget process, you know,
Okay.
because that, you know, that may take a little bit of consulting and thinking and analyzing, so, but the idea is that we need to come back with some type of plan during this year, you know, and present it to the council.
Okay.
So we would assume that that's going to be reduced. Is there any additional information that you need on the other items that you want us to provide in order to make your decision, or do you feel you have enough information and it's really just a question of,
So just for my, so thinking forward, we're meeting tomorrow night, correct? So for tomorrow, if we could have from Rob a list of the adjustments that we've made so far in terms of, you know, the departments that we've been through, both capital and operating. If you can just let us know where we are with those.
I can let you know right now, if you want.
Okay.
well, we'll put
There
it.
weren't that
we'll
many,
put it-
but
Put
if
it-
you
we can
could.
put it in writing, but I
We'll put
mean,
it in-
I have everything for
We'll
you.
put a summary
I
together
know.
of what you reduced so far, both in the town.
Where it came,
But he can give you the totals right now if you like.
Okay, thank you. Good. Go ahead.
So right now, with regards to, you haven't made any adjustments to the Board of Ed, at least, you know, officially yet. Right now, on the general government budget, so far, you reduced $111,300. And the capital, you haven't made any adjustments yet officially yet, so.
Okay, right. But is it an agreement that that 160 is going to come out or not for the truck?
Now, again, remember, like Robert said, what you're appropriating, or what you're voting on is the amount of the general fund contribution towards capital,
Right.
which is $313,850, I believe, in total, between the town and Board of Ed funds. You could reduce whatever you want off the gross amount. It may not necessarily change the net effect of the general fund contribution towards those project costs.
Okay.
Right, you
So-
may decide to use less, use the
Correct.
fund
We-
balance, I guess, to support the.
Right, that would use,
CIP.
if you reduce something, it would reduce the amount of unassigned fund balance we put towards the cost of the total project.
Which is, you said 381,000?
We're currently looking at $313,850, which is the same amount that the general fund contributed this current year towards capital.
Yeah, our concern is that you would rely, you know, 100% on capital with, you know, either grant funds or unassigned fund balance, but certainly that's a choice of the council, you know, so we were hoping that, to keep at least a minimal contribution from general fund, and, you know, that's why we would recommend that you maintain the 313, but again, that's a decision by the council.
Correct.
Okay. Okay? All right, so that's it for tonight with with what we had scheduled to go through. Tomorrow we'll reconvene and talk about, we have some outstanding departments that we're going to address. And we'll talk about where we're gonna go in terms of where we might be at the end of this process.
Yeah, and, as far as the council's recommendation to, budget recommendation to the public hearing in April, I would recommend that you focus on, the expenditure side, because there's so many unknowns as far as the revenue side is concerned, and not, perhaps even talk about what the potential mill rate might be based on that. I mean, you're lowering the budget, and maybe just focus on it, on the expenditure side, and then, I don't want you to get caught in a situation where there's so many unknowns right now. So with
Right.
regards to where the state's going, for example, with ECS, what's going to happen with the COVID relief monies, how much of that might be able to be filtered into the budget, what's going to, those kinds of things. So, there's some volatility there, but, again, we can talk about that further tomorrow as well.
At what point should we address the reduction in the benefits costs for the Board of Ed? I think is it 202,000 even, Robert?
We're recommending $202,000, yes.
And that would be, I mean, that would be a reduction.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what point in the process we want that in order to determine where we're at,
Well, I think what has to happen, the board already had passed their budget before that occurred, so it would be up to the council
Right.
to reduce their operating budget by that 200 and some odd $1,000, correct?
Yes, and would you like us to put that into the analysis as
I
a
think that's
potential
helpful,
reduction so
of
you can see
course.
the overall picture for tomorrow?
Right,
Yes.
Yeah, so we can see where we're at, because,
Exactly.
I'm assuming that's somewhat of a given, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. And we'll assume the revenues are as we presented them, as part of the budget, and just use that as how much does that reduce from the original mill rate projection that was given on March 1st? Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else we need to ask the town manager to get ready for us or Rob for tomorrow? Of course, if you think of anything before we get together tomorrow, I'm sure they'll be available to help us with that.
I will say one thing, if I may, with regards to the Board of Ed budget, the reduction of 202 for health insurance is correct. However, subsequent to the board adopting their budget, the defined benefit pension contribution, their allocation, as we talked about the other night on the town side, town allocation went down, the board went up. The dollar amount of their increase is $17,000.
Yeah, however, I know that we had some subsequent discussions with regards to the fact that we're leaving 1% in the board's budget for
Oh, that's true too.
for health
So-
health insurance, and that number was, at least in talking to Steve LePage, might be able to get absorbed, depending on what the final health insurance.
It could. I just wanted to throw it out there for full disclosure that there is, an item that we may want to increase in addition to a bigger decrease.
Okay. So, Rob, thank you for that. When you put together our information, if you could just make a note so that we can have all of that and what any impacts would be as to where we are at this point in time, that would be great.
You got it.
Thank you. Is there anything else anybody needs for tomorrow? Okay. All right. It seems like we're set for tonight. Thank you all very much for being here and for your thoughts. And right now, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.